Locarno Film Festival prides itself as a place that connects filmmakers and creatives on opposite sides of the world, helping facilitate collaboration. The Open Doors Projects Hub is an international platform for 8 selected feature films within Latin America and the Caribbean. We sat down with 2 of the directors taking part in this year's hub. Gloria Carrión was in Locarno with her film Pantasma. In 2022, her animated documentary Leaves of K was shown at festivals around the world, based on interviews she undertook during the 2018 civic uprising in her home country of Nicaragua. But the journey towards that finished product was complex and dangerous. Hi, Gloria.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
So look, your 2002 animated documentary Leaves of K is shown all around the world at many, many festivals. And it's based on interviews you did around the 2018 civic uprising in Nicaragua, where you're obviously from. But it wasn't supposed to be a film, was it? What were the circumstances that led to its existence?
Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be a documentary series that I was going to shoot about the social uprising. And however, there was at that time in 2021, there was a second wave of state repression in Nicaragua that saw a lot of feminist political party leaders and even candidates to be put in jail for political reasons. And I was the place where I was working began to be persecuted. And
what was the place?
It was called Funides, which is a think tank that I was working there doing a lot of work on collective memory and recurring cycles of violence. And I was looking at all of this through film. So I had to go. I had 3 days to leave Nicaragua in order to be safe. And
wow.
Yeah. And so, but I had already recorded audio interviews with 10 women who had participated of the 2018 uprising. And I put it on my luggage. And once I actually reached Toronto, which is where I went, I realized, this is like a shipwreck. Like, I don't understand what has happened to me. And it really connected me with a lot of people who have gone through this around, in history, right? And it really opened myself up to this experience. And I began to think, what happened? Like, why did I have to go? And I became very upset about the whole situation. And I thought, okay, I cannot go back. I can't make films anymore there. So who am I now? If I can't film, who am I? And that led to me rethinking really cinema and images. And I started to question, right? What if they took the country away from me, how am I going to continue? So I remembered the audio recordings. And I said, well, at least I have sound.
Yeah.
And that's, half of it. So I decided to use animation to be able to, I said, okay, if I can't film the image, if I can't have an image, I'm going to make the image. I'm going to create it. And animation came like that, right? As a solution to really transcend censorship.
Sure.
And Leaves of K is really born out of that, out of repression, out of, forced migration, and also out of an inner strength that I found and that is really guiding me nowadays with regards to film and with regards to the freedom to really be able to tell stories about Nicaragua.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you appreciate that, that freedom enormously. And now you've had that taken away from you once. Animation, is a slow process, but also very collaborative one. As I understand it, you were working with kind of diasporic collaborators, right?
Yes, who I cannot name, of course, due to security reasons, and which is the reason why we used pseudonyms for most of the crew. And really, it really revolutionized the way I thought about producing and about directing as well, because I had to work through Zoom, right? And it was really complex.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
No, at all. But I had to, I had no choice. And I think that limitations and obstacles can also be a real motor for creativity, and for innovation and for just finding your way out of that kind of situation.
What's been the kind of the creative community that remain in Nicaragua? What's been their reaction to, this type of crackdown, punishment of artists?
Yeah, there's a lot of fear. Definitely. The government passed a law. It's called Law 909, and it's a reform of the Cinematheque law, the creation of the Cinematheque. And it really is a crackdown, I would say, of independent cinema, because at the moment with this law, I could not, I could not film, I could not make my films, and nobody else could, because at the moment, like if the government says that if your film is about something that will destabilize, like the country's well-being and peace and etc., then you can go to jail, you can be prohibited from filming, they can confiscate your material. Like it's, we're talking about a dictatorship.
Yeah. Have you found the international community supportive, helpful in your situation, or?
Yes, to some extent. I mean, definitely Locarno and Open Doors has been this, house, this home, where I have felt there's an understanding, where there's sensitivity towards artists in danger and artists in oppressive situations. And I have definitely found that, that support here.
Are you aware of, are you aware of any screenings of Leaves of K in Nicaragua? Has anyone managed to get it inside there?
No. Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea when or if you and your friends could return?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, let's talk about Locarno then. I mean, you won the main award for open door funding this year. What's the project?
The project is called Pantasma, and it's a coming-of-age story about Felix, my husband,
oh, nice.
who, when he was 17, he was faced with the decision of joining the war effort between the Sandinistas and the Contras, because he was a revolutionary, and he really believed in the revolution. But he also had a very sort of propaganda-filled idea of who the enemy was.
Well, he was 17.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But, you would be surprised. Like lots of people were part of that, sort of enthusiasm and at the same time propaganda, right?
Yeah.
And the Contras are a very complex phenomenon. And this film, wants to dwell into that complexity because there are different ways of the Contras. The Contras were definitely CIA funded. And they were at first, they were former generals from the Somocista dictatorship. But
that's generally how they're perceived from a kind of lazy point of view from the West. Yeah.
Yes, and that is that it's correct that definitely happened, and the film will of course acknowledge that. But what is less known is that as years went by and the revolution also made mistakes, the Contras began to emerge as a peasant resistance army. And that's a story that has been untold, it's unknown. And it's a real taboo to say that, because to say that also questions the revolution.
Of course.
Right? It really obliges us to look at the mistakes and take responsibility, from both sides, of course, because atrocities were committed from both sides. But to me, what's important is like, I want to dwell into that complexity because the war in Nicaragua never ended, really. It just continued through other means. And we are now, more than 40 years later, facing another conflict that has, used exile as its arm, right? As this most powerful arm. But we are again divided into two sides, like we and them. And it's not as easy as that, right? Never is. But the complexity always gets forgotten. So the film I want the film to really tell the story and really and to question the notion of the enemy. Because those that were enemies in the 80s are now facing exile. Like my husband, I am facing exile, but also former combatants, right? And so I want to really tell this story, to really reflect on war and conflict, and to really think more critically about the notion of the enemy.
What stage of production are you in?
We are in early development, and with this award, we will be able to move into what we call the proof of concept, because the film is going to be done through stop motion, but it's a hybrid documentary. So I will use animation, stop motion, and also archival footage, personal and historical, and what I've called video art images, which is more abstract and more artistic type of
emotional.
Yes. And I want to start using this prize to be able to build, the valley of Pantasma, because it's a valley in the north of Nicaragua that was critical during the war. Lots of human rights violations took place then, and it was also created by a meteorite, which the NASA is studying right now, actually, as an impact crater. Yeah. And so I want to use this to be able to recreate that, and I want to recreate that with dry leaves, corn dry leaves. Which is very important in Latin America, in Central America, because it comes from like the Mayan origin stories that say that women, men, the creation was done with corn, and that we're all made out of corn. So,
how did you land on stop motion? The single hardest type of animation.
Yes. Well, it won't all be in stop motion because I want to also have inanimated setups to really look at, the characters and everything. But really, animation and stop motion is not just an artistic choice. It's also a political one, because I started thinking, okay, well, if the government has banned me from the country, I'm going to reclaim it through animation. I'm going to bring it to me, and be able to, sort of tell the story regardless. So,
it sounds really like an incredible project. A huge responsibility for you as well. It must be. Not just to tell a story of your husband, which nobody wants to mess up in any situation, but also one which is by its nature so complex. It must be difficult to even sit down and begin a script because you don't want to get anything wrong.
I've done a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of listening. I do that for any of my projects.
Sure.
And I do have like a first draft of the treatment of the script, and it helps, right? It helps understand how the complexities will come out, but also the mise en scène and how I'm going to bring together all these elements that I have mentioned, and that's important. And I think, to me, writing is like the first stone, first step, into a story.
And how did the partnership with Open Door come together?
It began last year when I showed Leaves of K at Locarno. It was it premiered at Sheffield Dogfest in competition, and then it came here through Open Doors. So that was like our presentation and our way to meet each other. And I was not able to come actually last year because of immigration issues, right? And I was I had applied for the permanent residency in Canada, and it hasn't come, and oh my gosh, it was very hard. But
I'm sorry, it sounds very stressful.
Yeah, but now I'm here. So
well, look, I mean, it sounds like a really thrilling project, and I'm so sorry for the situation that you've been put in, and I really wish you the very best for the future, and to Nicaragua as well.
Thank you.
Cheers. That was Gloria Carrión. Next is the Jamaican producer and director Nadean Rawlins, who was in Locarno with a film she's producing called Raised by Goats, a drama set in rural Jamaica right before its independence from the United Kingdom in 1962. She met her collaborator, the director Gibrey Allen, during last year's program and sat down to tell us about her experience. Hey, Nadean.
Hi, Alex.
Thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
This is your second year at Locarno?
It's my second year.
You're a veteran?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
Maybe the expert. So last year you were part of the Open Doors Producers Lab, right?
Yes, I was.
So what was it like? What did you learn? Was it great?
How long do we have? Because I'm sorry. It was, one word, enriching. I've always wanted to be a producer as far back as I can remember. And having this opportunity from Open Doors, I immediately jumped at the opportunity to apply. And it just far exceeded what I had imagined it would be. I knew we would have gone through what it is to be a producer, but it was more about the connections and interacting, speaking, networking with other persons like me from Latin America and the Caribbean about what we wanted to achieve as producers in this industry, learning from their own experiences, and then learning from the program to understand, how it works in the international arena for film. It was really enriching for me.
And then kind of, I suppose, at the heart of it must be a sense of collaboration, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because I met my director, Gibrey Allen, here.
Well, there you go.
Last year. It's really about that because Gibrey Allen, he was screening his film right near the beach here. And I'm a producer. I just finished the 1 week program.
So you're feeling,
learning about,
cocky and ambitious.
I'm like, okay, I know to be a producer. And I went to see Gibrey's film right near the beach, and I was like, wow, this is a Jamaican film. And we met for coffee. We just clicked because, it's about, connections and really, understanding each other and clicking as people, human beings. And we were like, we're Jamaicans. We're here experiencing this together. Let's do a project together. And that's how I'm back with Gibrey together.
So what is this year's project?
It's called Raised by Goats, written by Gibrey Allen. It's about Trudy, who is, struggling with the loss of her husband and the miscarriage, and she having this visceral pull to the Blue Mountains in Jamaica. It's set in 1962, and Gibrey has written a wonderful love story, because the heart of this story is really love and acceptance. And what he's done is written the story juxtaposition to Jamaica's independence, set in 1962. So it's about Trudy gaining her truth and her independence, and Jamaica gaining its own truth and independence. Beautifully written, very visual film, very, very sonic film. So we are extremely excited to do this collaboration together, learning how the market operates, because one of our main intention is to go into co-production with a European country.
Cool. And
we have been meeting, I would say we had about 21 meetings with, 21 meetings with producers and from Europe. So, we're going to go back and see how best we can, organize and move forward into co-production.
While it sounds like a kind of a perfect metaphor, you know, the independence of Jamaica, the independence of the individual, still there must be a bit of you as a producer that when you hear it's a period piece, you're like, oh man, that makes it 400 times harder.
150 times percent. I mean, I am hardcore patriotic when it comes to my country. I'm everything Jamaica. This is the second year I'm actually in Locarno, and we celebrated independence August 6th. And I'm here again August 6th. And on August 6th, I had my flag, I was in my colors. I'm truly patriotic, and I stand by my country 100%. And so when Gibrey told me it's a period piece about Jamaica, we want to tell our story about, you know, what we were through, what we've been through, what we're going through. And what he's done with this story is to shape it in the way with what this woman truly is going through. Just the same way during a time of our independence. So I wanted to be a part of that journey. I want to share what our country is about through Raised by Goats.
What is the kind of the state of the landscape as far as getting films funded in Jamaica?
You know, it's Alex. It's been difficult. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's been difficult. We don't have films coming out of Jamaica like every month there is a film, or every year we have 2 films. No, we do a lot of short films in Jamaica, but when it comes to feature-length films, it takes more money, it takes more time, it takes more experience. It also takes writing cinematic stories for feature-length. So we are getting better. We have 2 associations in Jamaica. There is a Jamaica Film and Television Association, with about 100 members. We have Women in Film and Television Association, which I'm the current president. We have a film commissioner. Recently, this year, our government introduced a film fund.
Oh, great.
Yes. It's not formalized as yet, but everybody's anxiously waiting for it to be formalized. There is public funding under the Chase Fund. That's a fund for cultural development. And, you know, there is access to fund, but we would really love more access to it. But we see that steps are being made, and we're very happy about it. And I must tell you, the fact that we are participating here at Locarno, the government, the people, you know, private sector, there's noticing, because every opportunity I get, I'm like posting and emailing people, hey, they're seeing us. So it's getting better, thankfully.
Do you think as a producer, it's your job to merely kind of help an artist to express themselves, or do you think there's a bit of more of a broad thing, that it's your job to try and create change throughout society as a whole?
It's my responsibility to create change, effect change. That's a personal responsibility I've always had, not just as a producer, but as an individual. The producer hat is what I wear, right? No, I wear this hat. I want to tell stories about Jamaica by Jamaicans, collaborate with the rest of the world, and more importantly, doing what I love and seeing people who understand what I love and want to do it too. I want to see where I can impart what I've learned, because I've learned from the lab, I've learned from the hub. I am anxiously waiting to go back home to see how I can formulate now workshops, work with these association, policy, with even the structure of our funding, you know, because I am speaking to so many people now. My notes, I'm like taking notes, mental note, like, well, okay, you know, so I have a responsibility now to impart what I've learned, to share so that we can grow as an industry in Jamaica.
Well, it's good to hear kind of real enthusiasm about it, because there's so much, all the Americans all doom and gloom at the moment, because they were having a big fight amongst themselves. But it's really cool to hear that somebody's got some optimism and hope. And do you see good things for Jamaican cinema in the future?
I absolutely do. Our story, Raised by Goats, you know, I'm so humbled by the feedback that we've been getting. So humbled by the feedback that we've been getting about the story. And, you know, you hear people say a lot of times, I don't hear about cinema in Jamaica. We know the music, we know the beaches, we know the mountains, but we don't know cinema. And there, you know, people telling us that they're now happy to hear that, and me telling them that we have more stories, and they're anxiously waiting. So I have a responsibility now to ensure that we make sure that we tell the right stories in the way we want to tell our stories. So it's great. I mean, just watch out, world. We're coming.
All right. Thank you very much for coming to chat with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Alex. Thanks.
Cheers.